before the Browns have traded their 13th overall pick to get Deshaun Watson, I was a big fan of any of the receivers in the draft, but the biggest one I was a fan of was Jameson Williams out of Alabama. If he would not have torn his ACL, he would be the Jamar Chase of this year's class. It wouldn't even be an argument. I think he would be the first receiver off the board. So talented. He's able to do anything that you want him to do. My favorite part, or my favorite game of him this year, he had two kickoff returns for a touchdown in the same game. He's exceptional in the slot, exceptional out wide. Jameson Williams, this year, he had 371 snaps out wide and 144 in the slot. That's a perfect guy that you'd want on your team. And you compare him to Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson had 306 snaps out wide and only 63 in the slot. That really blew my mind. But then I kind of sat back and thought about it. Garrett Wilson was normally the gadget guy for the Buckeyes. He's able to do anything. You put him in motion, give him the ball in an end around, whatnot. But another guy, if he would be able to fall, I'm a big fan of Jahan Dotson. Comparable to Jameson Williams. He's not as big, obviously. He's like 5'9", 5'10". He had 371 snaps out wide and 115 in the slot. And he also had a PFF score of 87.5.
And he also compares pretty good to a former Penn State receiver, too, and Godwin, the receiver for Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
That's really good, too.
In my opinion, going back to Jameson Williams, if I'd have to compare him to anyone, I think he's a taller and quicker version of Tyler Lockett. He's that deep threat guy. Tyler Lockett, I think, is one of the most underrated deep threats in the NFL. And he's 5'10", I think. I just really think that everybody is knocking on Jameson Williams because he tore his ACL. And I think that people are tending to overlook that ACL really is not as bad as what it used to be. The ACL, it used to be like pretty much almost career ending, if not just season ending. And now it's done in a little less than a year. And I like to compare him to Joel Embiid. When Joel Embiid entered the NBA draft, pre-draft, he needed to get ankle surgery. And he was presumed to be the lockdown number 1 overall pick. Everybody's seen his upside, but he'd have to sit out a full year. He sat out a full year. He got his surgery done, but then he had a knee injury. So he had to sit out for 2 full years. But when Joel Embiid came back, his first year he was a Rookie of the Year, and ever since, every year he's been in the league, he has been an all-star. And this year he was a candidate for the MVP. I think he's got the same upside as Jameson Williams.
Jameson Williams is really good in and out of the slot. He does really good. He's got great separation. He can go up over the top. He does really exceptional on all facets of the game.
I think he's probably the second best route runner in this class outside of Chris Olave. I think that Chris Olave is the best route runner in the draft. If not him, I'd argue with Jahan Dotson. I think he's exceptional as well. Or possibly, I'd toss the Drake London in there. The one thing that blew my mind, I was looking over the top 8 receivers in this year's draft. And Drake London has the highest of the PFF scores with 91.3. That really blew my mind. I did not think it would be that high.
Drake London's another one of them. That's 6'4", big guy, goes up and makes all the contested catches. Great red zone target.
So what do you think about Christian Watson? I haven't gotten to watch a whole lot of him, but do you believe the hype?
He's a small school kid, but he's one of them that can come out and really play, really perform. He looked really good at the Senior Bowl.
I had no clue that he was that fast.
And he is exceptionally fast. He's got good hands. He showed that at the Senior Bowl. And only time will tell, I guess, on him.
And he actually had the second highest score in PFF of the top 8 receivers. He had a PFF score of 87.8.
That is really good, especially for being on North Dakota State, such a small school kid.
Oh, yeah, we're going to go back about Denzel Ward. Like I said before, it's well deserved. I don't think it could have happened at a better time. I was going over some of his best games, his stats of this past year, and last season when Denzel Ward was the primary receiver, these are his stats. When he faced Jamar Chase, he had 2 targets and 2 interceptions, and one of those was a 99-yard pick six. Versus Devontae Adams, Devontae had 3 targets and 2 receptions for 50 yards, which is really good because he probably averaged, I'm just guessing here, he probably averaged about 150 yards a game. And you turn on the film of his games, Denzel is exceptional in man coverage. I'd put him up there with Jalen Ramsey and how good that he is. He has no missteps. He's stride for stride, it seems like, with every guy. Hardly ever gets burnt. And also, last year against Justin Jefferson, he had 2 targets and 1 reception for 31 yards. These 3 guys are pursuing to be top 5, and Jamar Chase was only a rookie last year. I'd put him ahead of Justin Jefferson already. That's how good I think that Jamar Chase is. And the biggest thing I loved about the Browns and Bengals game this past year is Newsome was just as good as Ward in guarding Chase. I remember that one play, he ran like a 30-yard out route, and Newsome was stride for stride with Chase and batted the ball down. You don't see that normally with a rookie corner against that high caliber of a receiver. I was going over some of Ward's best plays since he's been a Cleveland Brown. Obviously, you got that 99-yard pick six. What I love about Denzel is his ability to stop the run and his play recognition. I think his play recognition is exceptional. It seems like as soon as the ball is snapped, he knows either where the ball is going, the side of that the run is on, so on and so forth. But my favorite play of him was last year against the Bengals, and the Bengals ran, I think it was a bubble screen or a screen pass to Tyler Boyd, and Denzel, he slid under the lead blocker and tackled Boyd for a 4-yard loss in the backfield. That's how good of a tackler that Denzel is, and that's how good that he is in play recognition. And he's been the best corner I've seen on the Browns since Joe Hayden. I realize we're not going with a whole lot towards corners with Cleveland, but
my best play was when his rookie year when he was playing the Steelers and he peeled off of his guy and intercepted Ben. When Roethlisberger threw that ball, he peeled off and he come underneath the route and he intercepted it, and you knew right then that he knew what he was doing and he was a good corner for you.
Or even his rookie year, can't remember who we were playing, but he had an interception and blocked a field goal in the same game. Like, this guy is a playmaker. It does not matter where you put him on the field, he's making a play.
Okay, that'll be all for today. We'll be back later to talk about more draft stuff. If you remember, if you like the channel, hit that subscribe button. Thank you. Welcome back to the next edition of Cleveland Browns Draft and More. If you like the channel, remember, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so the next time you know when our next video comes up. Now we're going to start off. We're going to talk about Denzel Ward and his contract extension. I know it's been a week or two ago that he signed this deal, but he signs that massive 5-year, $100.5 $13.5 million contract extension, and that extension works out great for Cleveland because it ends up he was supposed to get 13.3, 13.4 roughly this year. The Browns got that dropped down to $5 million this year, and then next year it bumps up to 12.3. So its contract is friendly, it favors out. It works for the Browns. That's the Browns' MO, is signing them. In that first year, they make it pretty cheap. Then the next year, it kind of bumps up. So it's a great contract extension. And you lock up a very good player for the next 5 years. You got him, and it's got a lot of incentives in there about injuries and all that. So it works out great for both sides.
Biggest thing I love about the extension, it's done before Jair Alexander, Trayvon Diggs, all the other young cornerbacks. And if it wouldn't have been done sooner, his price would have been a lot higher. It was well-deserved.
It all just slots in there right above Jalen Ramsey. Ramsey was making $100 million, and then you got Ward that gives $100.5 million. The guaranteed money was slightly above Ramsey's, so it works out great. And like he said, too, you beat them to the punch of the Jair Alexander trade because he's going to want to be paid the top corner, so the Packers will have to pay him more. And we got two guys yet hanging out there in limbo, Landry and Clowney. And if anything's going to materialize with that, I think it's going to be after the draft. We got $27.7 million under the cap yet that we can work with. I know the Browns want to roll some of that over into next year, and you got to keep like $6.6 million back for your draft picks. So you still got a little flexibility yet in there to where you can go out and get a Clowney, you can go out and get a Landry. I don't know if you're going to get both, but you can get at least one.
I don't know about you. I'd rather have Clowney a lot more. When we had the addition of him this past year, our defense was something else. I realized we also had Owusu Koromoa to pair up on our defense, but Clowney is phenomenal at stopping the run, and if we lose him, I think that's what we're going to miss the most.
And you got Myles Garrett out there that's been on social media trying to campaign to get him back over the last couple days. And you got Clowney that had one of his best years last year, so you would think you would want to bring him back, and he would want to come back just because he had such a great year last year and build off of that. And far as Landry, everybody knows he visited the Saints. That visit went well. So I think it's going to come down between Cleveland and the Saints. And if the Browns somehow would get him back too, they need to play him in the slot. They cannot play him outside. That's not his position. He's not comfortable there. He makes all of his catches in the slot, so he has to play slot.
Having DPJ on the outside as our starter would be, I think, the best spot for us to go, especially with bringing back Landry if we were to do that. Our receiving core would be something else. I think it'd be a lot better than what anybody would ever imagine. And just the sure this route running of Landry in the slot, he's a different player.
Now we're going to dive into a little bit of the draft here, and we got our second rounds, what we're going to be focusing on. And I think your big team needs will be D tackle, edge rusher, maybe a wide receiver if one slips to them. But I think your main focus has to be on that defensive line. We haven't addressed any D tackles, and you need an edge rusher. A lot of key defensive tackles that I think will be out there will be a Travis Jones out of Connecticut. He's 6'4", 325 pounds. He's got a RAS score of 9.4 out of 10. He ranks really high there. His vertical's 28.5, pretty good. His broad jump's 90.2, which is really good. And he ran a 40 of 4.92. That is really good for a 325-pounder. And PFF has him ranked at 87.6, which that makes him the 17th best defensive tackle out of 861 that they're ranking him with. And you notice they played Clemson last year. In that Clemson game, he got blocked by the center and guard. Both of them came off, and he never moved. That's how strong he is. He held up. He's very strong. But the only real concern is maybe his pass rush a little bit. But we have not had a run-stopping defensive tackle since 1993, back when we had Michael Dean Perry.
So, some stats I like about Travis Jones is last year he ended the season with 47 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, which I think that's a great season, and he did that in only 11 starts.
Now, another guy that I kind of like, and there might be a chance that he'll still be there, will be Logan Hall. Logan Hall, he's 6'6", only 283 pounds, but he's got the room to be able to put a little bit more weight on that frame, and he can get up to 300. And his RAS score was 9.4, just like Travis Jones, but he had a vertical of 30. His broad was 80.9. He ran a 40 time of 4.88, which is really good. He benched 25 at 225 pounds, and his PFF grade was 83.4, which that ranked him 31st best out of all the defensive tackles out of 861. And he had a really good shuttle. He had a really good three-cone. That means he's explosive. He's got a great first step. He's got great movement. He's a kid out of Houston. He showed really good. And the only real knock on him is maybe he can't stop the run as good as some of the other ones, but that might be something you can teach and we'll work on. Now, you have another prospect?
I'm a big fan of Matthew Butler. I've been seeing a lot of people are having him possibly creeping into the back half of the first round, possibly the Buccaneers. But Matthew Butler out of Tennessee, I really like. The only thing, he might be a little bit slower. He ran a 40-yard dash time of 5 flat. He's 6'4", 297 pounds. Has a 32-inch vertical, 112-inch broad jump. And I think he'd be a perfect pick in day 2. And the thing I like about him, his stats are so comparable to Travis Jones, what we talked about, the guy out of Connecticut a little bit ago. So his stats this past year, he had 47 tackles, 8.5 tackles for a loss, 5 sacks, and a forced fumble. And he did that in 2 more starts than Travis Jones. Their stats are side-by-side comparisons. I would like Travis Jones a little bit more, but I wouldn't complain about either one of them.
Another guy that would be there as far as the defensive tackles would go would be DeMarvin Leal, a D tackle out of Texas A&M. He's 290 pounds. He's versatile. He played out. He may be more your traditional D end in a 3-4, but I think he can play a 4-3. You can put him inside. He's a little inconsistent when it comes to the run, but he's a great pass rusher. He can get there, and he's got the frame to add more weight if you need to. And on them obvious passing downs, you can kick him out, and he could be a DN, and he's got a great quickness, great first step to get there. And he's another prospect that might be there early in the second round. There's another guy that I keep seeing that might slip into the second round, and that's Treylon Burks, wide receiver.
That would be a dream come true for the Browns.
And the reason why they got him slipping is because he ran a 40 time of 4.55, which they think is slow, but I think he's got great football speed. He's got a PFF grade of only 85.8. They got him ranked 23rd best in all the receivers. And he's got huge hands. He wears size 4X gloves. So with them huge hands, he can go up and catch the ball. He don't drop a lot. He may not have a great 40 speed, but he's got great football speed. He takes good angles.
But what you brought up before about Jarvis Landry, he is exceptional in the slot. That was like his main role at Arkansas, was to play in the slot. If you're able to knock him in, even though he's 6'3" or 6'4", you still have DPJ, and those two would be able to switch roles. Because both of those guys, I think, would be great in the slot or the outside. Having a receiver like that would be huge.
And to be able to pair him up with Cooper and Peoples-Jones and Swartz, that would give you a good core nucleus of receivers, and you wouldn't have to be spending a lot of money that way in free agency on them.
Yep.
You would have some money to roll over to next year when all your cap money goes up.